Avram.
Hey, how's it going? Ugh,
It's going.
I am trying to figure out how I can have. I've been trying for like the last 2 hours to actually figure out how to make this demo that I want to work because it's timing out.
Oh,
Uh, I had been working a lot on. Well, there's a couple of different things I could demo, but the one I wanted to demo was Jarvis. Have you heard of Jarvis?
um,
Not the Marvel thing. The Microsoft
depends.
Jarvis.
Oh, that's interesting. Um, no, because there was a. I'm I'm hoping that's not going to be a big problem tonight. I might have to go put him somewhere else.
You should get AI that can recognize dog and filter it out.
Um, there was a there was an AI writing thing, couple of called Jarvis that changed to Jasper about a year ago. But no,
Yeah,
not heard of
well,
Microsoft Jarvis.
yeah. So it's a new thing. That's kind of a new concept. It's through they have a chat bot that anyone can use through Hugging Face. Are you familiar with Hugging Face?
No, it's a horrible name.
It is the worst, but it is a major Hugging Face is a very important site community for AI people. These are things
Hmm.
I learned this week.
Sure.
Uh, and Microsoft and whatever are using it. So convert. So anyway, they put this Jarvis thing up on Hugging Face. Anyone can install it, but um, part of the problem is that somehow it's timing out now.
Okay.
Also, there are extra things you can do if you run it locally in like in Linux. So I have tried various ways to install it in Linux, and I sort of had it working in WSL, uh, but uh, but I do mean sort of because
Is that
it's
the
sort of
is that the screenshot? Are you sure you know what you're doing?
no, well,
Oh.
sort of. That I was trying to get a feature of it to work called npm, a feature to run a web page with something called npm and np like the instructions that they give you
The Node Packet
that they
Manager?
yeah, it's given it like the node version of the node packet manager in Ubuntu wasn't the right version or whatever. Didn't like the version that it had, and so I was
Sure.
trying to like install a new version, but it didn't like that either,
Mm,
and was giving me gruff. So that's
sure.
what is
Aren't
that
computers
that
fun?
is the that is the gist of the situation. But yeah, so I've been trying to get it to run in Ubuntu, and I actually like installed several different Ubuntu's and several different virtual machines, including one just now, and trying to get it to go because it doesn't want to do what I asked it to do. Apparently,
Gotcha.
uh, I don't know why, but that
Because computers are the worst.
there's no reason for what it's doing, but I guess it's going to do it anyway. um, you
AI.
know,
It's coming for us.
yeah, yeah. So, all right. Um, I can. So the web based version is very easy to show, except that for some reason, right now there's something wrong with their server,
Of course.
and when I go to put in the data, go to put in the API key, which it asks you for every single time you load the page.
Ugh.
It tells me that there's a 3,666 second wait. Uh, if you do the math, that's more than half an hour.
Okay.
Um, and I have it going right now, and it's been going for 20 minutes. So and that's for one of the two API keys that you have to put in. Usually, it takes like a second when
Oh,
I was doing it before, but apparently now it's decided uh, to give problems. So I was trying to do it
it
to
doesn't
see if
want
I
to
could
be
just do
demoed.
it through Ubuntu. Instead, if that works better, I can get on one of my virtual machines, I can get the command prompt up, but it's not great. Like the web-based version is better because it shows you images. I do have some screenshots of it. So there's that, and then there's LangChain. Believe it or not, I spent a lot of my week doing AI stuff. I know it's weird, but I know
that's a rabbit hole that you have fallen down.
It's a rabbit hole I've fallen down, but I mean, it's probably an okay rabbit hole to be in because everybody's learning about it now. So,
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all.
I mean, I don't necessarily think it always works well, but okay. I mean, last week I demonstrated Auto GPT, and this week I've tried Baby AGI, and now this Jarvis thing, and also this thing where you can create your own chatbot based on your own stuff. If I can get that to work, because I've been messing with it a lot. But there's a okay, let's see if this works.
Well, while you look at that, I'm going to take him elsewhere because this isn't working, and I will be back in a couple minutes.
Okay, that's good.
All right. That problem is now dealt with. I hope. This is the wonders, folks, of having a sociopathic dog.
I guess it... Sorry to hear that.
That is what it is. He got the opportunity to be here for the show. He said no. Off he goes.
Yeah.
We'll try some more in the future. But for now, it is what it is. Okay, so...
Yeah. So what else are we talking about tonight? So one way or another, I will talk about some updates in AI technology.
Okay. Metaverse Standards Forum is officially a real organization. Netflix Games hired a bigwig for to be in charge of content. The interesting both Discord and Twitter having to put a kibosh on having to follow through on community standard stuff, and the Tolkin estate is being sued by a fan fiction writer for potentially stealing his content in the Amazon show. So,
all right. Well, there you go.
in reality, it's the danger of doing fan fiction, but
Yes.
All right. He is howling in the distance. All right. And good news, live viewers. The Pure VPN logo has been fixed. It's only taken, I don't know how long at this point, and I feel terrible, but the Pure VPN logo has been fixed for tonight, so hooray. All right. Get that. All right, I think I've got everything I need. I'm going to remember to hit record. All right, and here we go. This week, the Metaverse is starting to unify. Netflix adds a halo to its gaming plans. Social media had to moderate hard, and Middle-earth is under attack. It's Sunday, April 23rd, 2023, and this is episode 645 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, or YouTube, where you can join the community and get ad-free versions of F5 Live and Piltch Point, or on our website, PLUGHITZlive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can go to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. If you can't join us live, that's okay as well. You can always go to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe, and there you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. All right, and we've already got people going in the chat room. Hello, and welcome.
Hey.
We're still here. We're still doing a show. Hooray! We've had an inconsistent schedule, and we apologize to our live viewers in particular for that inconsistency. But we're back. Things are going well until Mother's Day, when things will go a little weird. But for right now, we're back in the saddle. So, how's your week been?
Oh, busy. I mean, busy in the sense that I just keep. I feel like I don't accomplish anything, but I feel very busy. I guess that's what it's like when you're trying to like make stuff work in various things that involve Python packages and weird stuff. The instructions are this is why a lot of lay people don't like Linux or some of these things. Although this is happening in Windows too, where like, oh yeah, you get instructions to do one thing, but then you get an error even after following the instructions.
Yeah.
Because the instructions were for a very specific situation with a very specific build of a particular package or whatever, and like now your package is not quite new enough or too new, And so you got to find the older one or the newer one, and like I don't understand. This doesn't happen with like regular Windows stuff. But the reason that I've been doing all that is because I've been trying to learn a lot more about the technology of in our last episode we talked about Auto GPT, and I've been trying to learn a lot more about how you can actually set up and execute on your own bots, because I don't want, I mean, I still think that the quality of the answers that you get from chatbots is terrible and continues to be. But what I will say is, like, the best shot we have at using it for useful purposes is to master the technology, know exactly what the different things do, and so I feel quite ignorant about like, okay, here's the different models and what they do and how you can set them up to interact with each other. Because on the very high, there's a very high end of very you know, uh, ephemeral end of like, okay, people use ChatGPT and they ask it to write their term papers, they ask it to write articles, and how is it doing? Not so well. But then there's the technical side of it, which is there's a lot more out there than just ChatGPT. There's a lot of different models that do different things, some of which are not even text chat. Is there any way to use them for a good purpose?
Sure.
How do they work? How do you get good stuff out of them? So I've been really trying to do a lot of digging into how you program a bot, to how you program a custom bot to do things that you want it to do, and some of the new stuff that's coming out. I feel like that's an interesting area for me as a journalist and tech enthusiast, is to look at the things that we actually have to do to like make this run. And so that's what I've been spending a lot of time on.
That's fascinating. My time has been way less interesting than that. I bought a habanero plant.
Oh.
completely
Cool.
non tech related. I've got a habanero plant and I got a calamundan tree. So I've been desperately looking for something that doesn't plug in, to step away from things, and
Yeah.
so outside gardening, we've got tomato plants, and now we've got the calamundan and the habanero plants and all kinds of interesting stuff. So that's where a lot of my time has been going when I'm trying to step away from screens. So
Yeah, I mean,
I had to have something.
it's that makes sense. Yeah, there's no escape from screens at my house right now. My son's birthday party was yesterday, and we had, what did he want for his birthday party? A video game truck. There's a thing where you can get although we could have just set up a bunch of consoles in the house, but it's something about having it on a truck. So they come by with a trailer. They've got like a really long couch and with 10 screens or whatever, and people can sit and play. So
It's a
anyway.
portable version of what we do at Strike for birthday parties. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
a we've even looked into the concept. It's really an interesting one. And obviously getting together and doing, and gaming, it's the I don't know, the community aspect, the social aspect that you get being in person that is different than playing on Xbox Live. Plus, you've got other issues there. But yeah, I'm glad he had fun.
Yeah, he had fun. Of course, what did he do? He played Minecraft
Of
like
course
he
he
could
did.
have, like he could always do. Uh, but that's kind of the funny part. He could always do that, but that's what he did. I
Sure.
mean, same thing last week when I took him to the Metropolitan Museum, not the Museum of Modern Art here, where they actually have a video game exhibit. and they, where they had a bunch of like games on display. And what did he do? He went and wanted to play the Minecraft one. I was like, hey, you could do that at home. I mean, I spent like a few minutes playing Tempest, if you remember that one.
Oh yeah.
So
that's one that comes up in conversation at the shop fairly frequently, actually.
Because I love the controls, because you have the dial, which you never, that and Asteroids, I think, are the only games that had that dial interface. Is that right?
At least that properly took advantage of it.
Yeah. So
you could use it for Pong and all kinds of things. But yeah, it was the only one that really took advantage of it properly.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry. So that was, yeah, I have no escape from screens. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I get it. Before we get into the show, a little bit of housekeeping. You'll notice some changes to the Piltch point tonight. Enjoy them. Just warning you ahead of time. There's going to be a couple things that are different. So enjoy. And with that, let's get down to the news. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, tablet, Xbox, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. Remember, current students, faculty, parents, and active military can save up to 10% off almost everything. To browse the products and learn more about the discounts, you can go to f5live.tv/Microsoft. So we've talked a lot about the Metaverse over the last, year or since it became a popular topic. And obviously that was the topic du jour before generative AI kind of took over. But Metaverse is still happening in waves of whatever. And one of the things that we've talked about and been concerned about is the fact that, the difference between what Facebook/Meta is up to and what Microsoft is up to, and everybody's doing their own thing, and there's no consistency. You might get locked into an ecosystem with purchases, and that has been one of our big concerns. The good news is there has been an organization kind of in an incubation phase that is called the Metaverse Standards Forum, similar naming to the High Definition Forum and the Ultra HD Forum and the 8K Forum. And the idea is to create a standard or a set of standards that everybody, at least all the members, will abide by. One of the best known ones in recent years is the Wireless Power Consortium. They created the Qi standard because there were originally 3, and they were all kind of fighting each other, and then if you switched from a Samsung to a Nokia, nothing was going to work. And God forbid you had an HP or a Palm, it wasn't compatible with anything else. So WPC said, here's what we're going to do. And even Apple got on board. And we know Apple's not a big fan of standards. So that is what we're hoping, or what they're hoping will happen with the the Metaverse Standards Forum. Well, this week, the organization went from incubation. They were incubating as part of an organization that starts with a K and has completely slipped my mind, and I can't see it in the article. It's because it's not on my screen. The Kronos Group with an H. But this week they have gone independent. They are officially their own incorporated organization, which means that with that comes proper membership and nonprofit status and a whole bunch of things that allow them to properly operate as an independent organization and get things done, do the lobbying that needs to be done to trade groups and industries and things like that. So this is a big move forward, right, Avram? Like I said, with inductive power and things like that, things didn't start to standardize until we got our standards committees, hopefully this will be a good sign.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, we can hope that we'll actually see something more useful out of this environment because, I mean, if we're talking about like what has been going on, it's just not been very with the metaverse. It's just not been there's not been a lot going on. Like I
Yeah,
was having with lunch this week with our new CEO. We got a new CEO at our company, and they had like a big lunch. It wasn't just me, and I think we were talking about things that were fads that like came and went, and everybody was saying, "Metaverse, that sounds like a fad. Nobody's talking about it anymore."
sure. Topic du jour, right? We've always got, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking tech or politics or whatever. There's always the hot topic, and not the retail store, but there's always the hot topic, whatever is the cool thing, and everybody throws their time and their effort, their money into it, and then if it turned out to be a fad technology, 3D TVs, then all all of that time and effort and research ends up just disappearing because I don't even know if you can buy a 3D TV today, right? And that, interestingly, part of that came down to, and that was an accidental reference, but some of that came down to a lack of standardization in 3D TV technology. And so that just kind of disappeared over time, and maybe with a standards thing, maybe the technology won't go away. Maybe people don't care. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a gamer. I'm a tech person. I cannot bring myself to care about VR at all. AR, I think all of our longtime people know, AR is something I'm very interested in. But for some reason, VR, I just cannot care. As much as I've tried. The fact that the headsets make me a little sick doesn't help. But I don't know. VR has never interested me. But I know, for a while, like you said, for a while it was a big thing, and then people just stopped talking about it. Facebook changed their corporate identity, and then that was the end of talking about the metaverse, possibly because of that. But I don't know. Do you think? I guess it's a great topic. Do you think it turns into a fad technology, or do you think we see it cycle back around?
Nope, I think it's a fad. I mean, it's unfortunate because I think the idea of VR is very solid. I mean, it hasn't gone away like
Sure.
3D, but
Sure.
um,
I mean,
I think
Meta's got a Quest 3 in development. So,
right.
I
I
mean,
mean,
they
so
haven't let go of the concept for sure.
my son has a MetaQuest, and he uses it for a few things.
Hmm.
There's not really a lot of great games for it. He uses it primarily for like Minecraft and VR. Uh, because everything with him is Minecraft, everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really don't know what to say. It's just like you you do. So it's usable. It's not the technology is fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with the technology, but it's just not. Um, it's not really. That there's just not really killer software for it.
Yeah. And the software that's out there, like the Metaverse software, right? Right now, they're all disparate. Like there's no continuity. We've got a standards for them. Maybe that'll change. There's currently no continuity, and um, it's essentially PlayStation Home, which also was a failure several generations of PlayStation ago. It. I don't know that Second Life on your face is a thing that's ever really gonna catch on.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I was the biggest proponent. You can go back to some of our shows years ago of hey, people need, people are going to be wearing headsets all around, and they're going to be wearing it for AR wherever they go.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to come home and hang out in VR, and it's going to be like Ready Player One. But I don't know. I mean, we could still get there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's not. I think what's really lacking is not even the hardware; it's
Mm-hmm.
the software and
Yeah.
the compelling experience. And you know, I don't know. It's interesting because we certainly could have had a moment there. When people were in lockdown, a lot of people were in lockdown, and it like, hey, that would have been a great time for VR to take off as a
Yeah.
social medium.
Yeah.
But uh,
But even the company that
now,
changed, but even the company that changed their name, their avatars didn't have hands or arms or legs or like it all felt like a Wii.
right? Yeah, they still can't. They still can't quite get it right. So I don't really know what to say about it. You
May,
gotta like,
maybe, maybe if the goal isn't, you know, to completely control the entire thing, right? And there's some stuff that's standardized, maybe without duplicating efforts, they can actually put time and effort into the experience instead of putting time and effort into the technology, right? That because I think
yeah,
oftentimes that's one of the problems, right? Is when you've got 10 companies all trying to compete with each other on the same thing, you're spending all your time building underlying frameworks and communications pipelines and all the things. But if there's a standardization, like with Qi, if all of a sudden you don't have to worry about what does the coil look like in the phone, what does the coil look like off the phone, if all of a sudden all you have to do is worry about how to put it into the phone and everybody else can worry about their part of the experience, it works a whole lot better. And everybody's happier. And now, you find Qi products everywhere. You find inductive charging everywhere. That's not possible if you've got 10, 12, 20 companies all competing in the same space. Maybe that's part of what's been going on here is there's just been no way to build something compelling because everybody is building everything.
yeah. That I think that's fair to say. It's there, but I don't see a lot of evidence that there's going to be a lot of traction here. I think what's really going to happen is they're probably AI is the new thing. So now we're going, even though these two things really don't have are not mutually exclusive, right?
Right.
Because you could have AI that powers your VR, and and one does really not have to do with the other. But I can
Sure.
totally see that the new the new hotness right now is that they want um, everybody in tech, everybody who's running a tech company wants to say that they're doing AI.
Uh huh.
So just like everybody wanted to say blockchain a few years ago.
Right. Right.
So I also think it's going to have its comeuppance, but apparently not yet. So
You mean blockchain?
no
Oh.
AI,
Okay. Yeah,
like
I agree with
AI
that.
bots.
Yeah, because
I,
once
I
again,
think. I mean,
it's it's a lot of it's a lot of repetition. It's a lot of people trying to compete in a thing that nobody quite understands. AI and generative AI is cool to people, and then just like just like 3D TVs, I'm with you. I suspect that for most people, it'll stop being interesting.
yeah. I mean,
And some other thing will become the interesting thing because that seems to be the way it works in every topic, in every industry, in every whatever. You know, one week,
yes.
one week you're hearing about this thing, and then the next week you don't ever hear about it again, and you're on to something else.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate though because the hype is very well, we could talk about this later. The hype can be very dangerous, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are losing their jobs. There are people who are making investments based on bad advice that they get from this. So there's real consequences for something for this, but um, you know, but I just don't think that it's anywhere near to living up to the hype, and we could talk about that in my segment.
But you could be talking about AI, or you could be talking about the metaverse. I don't know that
Yes,
it's
that's
living up.
true.
I don't know that it's living up to the hype, and I don't know that it's ever going to actually take on.
It's not living up to the hype, but I'm not even sure if the problem is a technology problem.
Right.
With AI. Like, yeah, there needs to be better software. It's not really a hardware problem, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I think it's like, where are you going to get the cool kids to go, right? So like, think about, we've talked about this so many times, like, who are the influencers that are going to influence people to use it?
Right.
Like, people influence, like TikTok, like Twitter became a thing because there were, some influential people started using it and other people followed them there, right? And
because it initially carved out its niche as the place where you could interact with celebrities.
Right, and they were just fortunate that they actually got celebrities to go along with this,
right?
Because no one was, as far as I know, no one was incentivizing, giving them a great incentive to do so. Wasn't it like Shaquille O'Neal, like the first person or one of the first big names on Twitter or something? I think
Twitter's never been my thing. I don't know.
Yeah, me neither. But although ironically now I use it more than before, but and not because it's getting better, because obviously it's got a lot of issues. But I think the thing is, so for Metaverse, I think what they need is very simple. They need to have something where they can convince someone who is an influencer or a bunch of influencers to come and say, hey, this is the place to hang out with me, and then if you see the osmosis of people coming there, they'll have something. That is the big issue. They need to have the osmosis of having something. If they don't, then nothing happens.
Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. The standards board could be the thing, or standards forum could be the thing that helps bring the ability for a company to focus down. But as per usual, only time will tell. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all of your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee right now by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. I warned people at the top of the show that some changes were coming. There you are. New music. I really like it. I was jamming out over here. But anyway, Avram, we've got more AI stuff going on, since, as we were talking about in the last segment, that is our topic du jour right now.
Yes. So I want to talk about a couple things, but most of all, I want to talk about something called Jarvis. So Jarvis is Microsoft's new. I'm looking up because I may have a demo running that I could show you. May being the optimal word. So
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. So only something I've been working on for 2 hours because I had something working before. But anyway, let's start by talking about what it is and why it matters. So Microsoft researchers wrote a paper that they published recently about. They actually only use the word Jarvis for the name of one of their projects, but the name of their GitHub page, but everyone's calling this Jarvis. I guess because they like. I guess because they like it, the name, because it reminds them of Marvel. Anyway, so the idea is that one thing people don't think about enough when they're thinking about AI is that there's a lot of models out there. There's a lot. ChatGPT, which has gotten all the attention, and Bing Chat are based on one large language model called GPT 3.5, and now it's upgraded to GPT-4 in some places. But that's just an LLM, a large language model, which works with text. But there are thousands of models out there that are good at doing very particular things. There are some models out there that are good at analyzing images. There are other models out there that are good at creating images. There are models out there that can analyze sound and others that create sound. There are models out there that can analyze video and create video. There is a system that I was reading about yesterday that I think is going to come into beta where it's just pure text. Well, NVIDIA demonstrated one, and I think there's going to be another system that's going to be open where it'll just be, this is not Jarvis, this is something else, text to video. So you'll say, NVIDIA showed a demo of show me a stormtrooper vacuuming on a beach. And they got a little video of a stormtrooper vacuuming on a beach and it's photorealistic. And I don't know if they cleaned it up, but it looked really good. So there's a lot of models out there. Jarvis is the one Jarvis is the one framework to rule them all. What you do is it creates a chatbot or another interface where you can ask the bot to do something, and it will go out kind of behind the scenes and show you what it was what models it used to accomplish the task. So it can, you can feed it an image and say hey, for example, you could feed it here. Actually, I have it running, so I'm going to show you. And hopefully, I at least have one example here that I already did, so it already works. So let's go look at this. So in my screen here, I am running. Can you see it? I'm running this under Ubuntu, but you don't need Linux to do it. I have a tutorial going up probably tomorrow about how you can try this yourself. This is now they're deploying Jarvis into something called into a chatbot called Hugging GPT. What's with all the hugging? There is a site called huggingface.co, and this, believe it or not, is super important website for people who are developing AI. It is a repository of open source data sets and models. You can build stuff there and share it. And they have API keys and just a lot of stuff runs through Hugging Face. And so they built a little model in it called Hugging GPT. And you can actually get it right on. Actually, it's probably the best place is just to go to Hugging. Microsoft has their own little section on Hugging Face, and you can go into Hugging GPT, and you can do it here you have to paste in. Now watch. Let's see if this works for me. It wasn't working for me before. You have to have an open API key, which you can get for free, although there's a limit to how much you can use it before you have to pay, and then you have to have a Hugging key. Well, look what happens. This usually takes a second or two, but tonight, I guess a lot of people are using it or something, and it's telling me it's going to take 3,000 seconds to read my API key. Well, do the math. That's going to be longer than we have here. So I installed a local copy of Hugging GPT on the virtual machine on my computer, so we can try this. So one thing that you can do is you can ask it about images. So you can ask it about images if you give it the URL of an image, or if you have some stored locally and you've got a local bot. So so this one here is an example. It says, given a collection of these images, tell me how many zebras. So it asked about 3 images, right? As a human, we now know that there are 4 images. Based on the inference results, there are totally 3 pictures with 0, 1, and 2 zebras respectively. For the first instance, result of object detected task is a cat and a potted plant. For the second is a zebra, and it tells you exactly which model it used. Now, what's really interesting is it's not showing it in this local version, but in the web version that I had open before, when it works, it actually shows you like a little sidebar with showing you exactly what. Let me see if I have. Yeah, see. So it has a little sidebar showing you exactly the like JSON or whatever it received from the different models that it was using. So I thought that was pretty cool. So you can ask. So what it's doing here is multiple things, right? It's looking at the image, it's identifying stuff, and then it's answering questions. Now, you can also, let's see, please generate a canny image based on this. Let's see how that works. These are all examples. So I'm doing things that are easy for it because they were tested. I have to say that an example that I saw for it, I've carefully considered your request and generated a canny image. Actually, I don't know what a canny image is because it looks identical. Well, the inference was just text description of herd of giraffes and zebras grazing the field. Unfortunately, the services were unavailable. Okay. Yeah, see that I've had that problem a lot where a service wasn't available. I've also had a problem where I fed it something and what it said it was not very good. So, for example, I fed it a picture of an SSD. So for example, right? Let's say I took a picture here, which is a picture of it, and I got the URL, the image link, right? I got the exact URL of the picture, and I gave it to it, and I said, not just what is this would be just the most basic thing, but where can I buy this, right? So if this worked correctly, what it would do is it would identify that this was a Samsung 990 Pro SSD, and then it would go out on the web and find some links for it. Let's see what it does. Well, it did load the image. Sometimes I've given it URLs where it somehow was not able to load the image for reasons I don't understand. But last time I did this, it said something like it was a box. So once again, the hype and the reality, different things. But what I think is really interesting about all of this, let's see, what did it say? Based on the information, I can suggest you can purchase this item by finding a retail store near you or looking for it online. Oh, thanks. That's great advice. I've used the following models. Okay. The image can be found at your best bet for purchasing this item. What does that mean? It doesn't know what it...
Very helpful.
At least it knew it was electronics, I guess. I'm going to ask it what was in the image. Let's see if that sparks anything for it. There's a great example, though. I'll see if I will pull up the picture from their paper while we wait for this. And here's sort of what this is the paper that they wrote. This is actually no. This is the GitHub, and then there's there's actually a PDF of their like research paper, but in it is this chart, which is kind of fascinating. And it says that like ChatGPT is the controller here, and then it does task planning. What am I going to do? Model selection. Okay, which are the models I have access to? Doing the execution, and then sending you back a response. So here's one that actually, if I could do this, would be really interesting. It says, like, please generate an image where a girl is reading a book and her pose is the same as the boy in this example image. So they just fed it this picture of this boy. It found the boy in the picture, analyzed his, I don't know, pose, his gait, and then it showed her sitting and reading a book. I mean, I don't know if that, I guess that's accurate, but it's amazing. But you can see there was a lot of different things going on here. Reading a picture, analyzing the position of the person in the picture, and then outputting another picture. And of course, talking to you in text about, hey, I've got your request and I'm working on it, and here's my answer. So that's a lot of interesting stuff working together. Now, in the end, people who are just users of this technology probably aren't going to notice this, because this is how they're all going to work. They're all just going to work behind the scenes. If you're building your own bot, though, you might be more interested in this type of thing. Well, it was very confused when I asked what was in this image. The image contains a conversation between a user and an assistant. What?
I'm on board. Makes sense to me.
And then so again, these things don't work as well as we like to say. Like they don't do a very good job.
Is it telling you what it thinks the conversation was? Is that what that says?
Oh no, the inference results of the image was an error message indicating the path of URL. For the conversation, the inference result was a response of "Sure, I'll help." I have no idea. It's just bizarre.
I wonder if it's because it was a WebP image.
I've tried it with JPEGs. I don't think that's the case. But I think that's kind of an interesting thing that people can try. Speaking of trying things, while we're talking, I wanted to talk about. So I have an article that I put up earlier in the week about something called Baby AGI. Actually, I put it up just the other day about Baby AGI and AutoGPT together. We demonstrated on a previous show AutoGPT, which is a thing where you just give it a task and it kind of runs with the task for you. There's a similar piece of software called Baby AGI that I tested, and they both do a bad job. But one way in which they do a bad job is that they make stuff up. So here's a great example. I asked it, the AutoGPT, to create a website for a fictional web design company called Geek in Chief Designs. I just gave it a handful of requirements. I said 3-page website with a contact us page and a privacy policy that says we don't collect or sell any user information. I did not say, now, Geek in Chief Design doesn't exist, so there's no information on the web for it to get if it were going out to the web to get information. And here was the homepage that it designed. Welcome. We design and create websites that are customer-centric, mobile-friendly, and visually appealing. How would it know? Like, that's jargon that a lot of web design companies would use.
Yeah, that's what.
But that's not necessarily true, right? Geek in Chief Design provides websites and web applications development. Our team of experienced developers. What if it's just one person? It didn't. And part of what's going on here is they don't ask follow-up questions. They just, in the absence of information, they just make things up. So if you were hired to write, and by the way, this is its great web design. They put the /n in the HTML.
Nice.
But I think if you were asked to design a website for someone and they didn't and write the copy and they didn't give you much information, you would come back to them with a question. You'd say, well, what can you tell me about your organization? How many people are there? What do you do? These autonomous agents don't do that. And actually, even the regular chat doesn't do that. I don't know why, but the things are never in the absence of information, they will make things up instead of asking you for more. I guess the idea is to have the human do as little work as possible, but the end result is just lying. The other thing is the privacy policy that I asked it, and I asked it to create a privacy policy that said that there was no, we don't collect user information. It directly disobeyed that and wrote a privacy policy saying that we collect people's name, address, and phone number.
Well, that's helpful.
So it directly contradicted what I told it. So, I just, you can't trust these things. You cannot trust them. They may get better, but part of the problem isn't the technology, it's the fundamental philosophy that we're going to have the machines operate independently as possible, not cite sources if possible, and not ask the human follow-up questions, so we can just spit out whatever. Now, if you engineer a really good prompt, maybe you'll get what you want, but I told it to write a privacy policy that says that we don't collect user information, and it wrote one that said that we did, because probably that's what it saw on other people's privacy policies. So what it believed it should say versus what I told it to say, it went with what it believed. That's a problem. So
it went with the statistically more common situation instead of the thing that you said.
Right. So one thing I've been trying to figure out is the right thing would be, can I create a bot that only answers questions based on information that I have fed it? Can I create one that will only say things that I approve of? And that's something I've been working on as a project. So here's a Python script that I've been using with a framework called LangChain. And I'm still trying to figure out how to do this on a large scale and make it work properly. But I fed it an article, which I have here in, this is an article on what is USB 3 that I wrote for Tom's Hardware. And I said, okay, let me feed it to the bot, and it loads. You can do this in MOS. You can have it do like thousands of pages, but I'm trying to figure out how to put it into a database, because otherwise the way this works is you'd have to load them every time you run the script, which is obviously impractical. And then you can feed it a question. I mean, you could turn this into a web, forum where a person would have a chat bot. So don't be put off by the, fact that that question is just written here. So I have asked it, how fast is USB 3.2 Gen 2x2? And I run it, and it gave me an answer. It gave me the correct answer, right? And you can now. One of my problems though is this is using ChatGPT to. So now let's ask it a question that's not covered in my document, right? Why is the sky blue? Now, if this worked the way I want it to, it would say, sorry, I can't answer your question. But I think it's going to answer my question. So let's see. Never mind this embedded with DuckDB. That's part of the Python. The sky is blue because of the way sunlight interacts with the atmosphere. I have it, by the way, show sources for everything. That's something that this LangChain allows you to do, is to actually get the source. So that information is fine, except that's not what I want my bot to do. So I'm trying to figure out how to stop that. And the reason why I'm trying to figure out how to stop that is if it can answer a question that's outside the scope, then it can give you information even about our stuff that's outside the scope. Like, what if you ask about USB 3 versus USB 2, which isn't really covered in the document? And it starts to give you other information. That information could be wrong, something we don't want it to say. So I'm trying to figure out how to kind of make my own bot that will use only the data that I give it, and apart from knowing the English language, which it has to know, will not give you information. if you ask it a question that's not covered in something that I fed it, it should say, sorry, I can't answer that question.
Sure.
That's what I'm trying to figure out, because I feel like that would be a decent bot to have. If I could create one that had like the sum total of all the Tom's Hardware articles or something in
Right.
it, and then people could talk to it. Now, mind you, they still might not have a wonderful experience because they might ask it something that's not covered in one of the articles, or that sort of requires compiling knowledge from different areas. Like, what if it asks a very specific, like, I want a laptop that can, run Visual Studio well, and we don't have an article about just that. It may give you an answer that's not, great. So, but that's the problem that we have with all training data, except I would rather have it in an exclusion way where, okay, we're only letting in sources of data that we trust, versus, I mean, there was a story this week in the Washington Post about, they looked through, there's actually a web page, I think, on the Washington Post where you can see what websites were used to train. I'm not sure if it was train Bard or train GPT. And you can see that, like, there were a bunch, I mean, it was trained by everything. So it was trained not only by reliable sites, but by, very unreliable sources of information. It was also trained by very biased sources of information. It was trained by like Nazi sites and stuff like that, because they don't discriminate based on what the site is. They're just going out and grabbing everything. So, that's bad from a copyright and intellectual property perspective. I don't want them grabbing my stuff and using it to take traffic away from me, as we've discussed many times. But it's also really bad from a information reliability perspective. Like, if every piece of data is treated equally, then it has an equal chance of being the truth, then nothing is valid.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting situation. Washington Post wants me to sign up for an account to read the article.
I know, that's why I haven't gone in and done it myself, but I've seen other people have. Yeah. I don't know if there's another page you can go to view this training data. We found out that there was something like 0.0002% of the training data was Tom's Hardware, but almost everybody, when they put in their site, gets 0.0002%. So I'm not sure if that's an accurate number or just the number they give everybody. So
it'd be fascinating if it's just like,
but I guess
like that's the initial set value on the thing, and the math is going wrong, and so it never actually resets it. It just gives you back 0.0002.
I mean, it doesn't even really matter what that means, whether it's 0.02% or 0.08% or whatever, because your data's in there, and all somebody needs to do is ask the right question, and they will get the data. The data may be plagiarism, as we've talked about before.
Absolutely.
Or the data may be misleading, or it may be a combination of misleading and plagiarism. So, so that's why I don't trust these things.
Yeah.
But there's an opportunity to do something interesting. So, like, when the image recognition thing works, you can see that that's actually somewhat useful.
Sure.
I mean, somewhat, right? Like, I don't. It managed to get the zebras, but almost everything else that I've tried to feed it that wasn't a specific example, it didn't do well. One that I specifically saw somebody call out was feeding it a picture of balloons on a string and asking what happens if I cut the string, and it's supposed to say the balloons will fly away, but instead it says this is a kite, nothing will happen, or something. So
nice.
So but look, I can see image recognition getting better. We know image recognition gets better. There probably is better image recognition out there, and it's just not using the best model, because it's probably using an open source model that's not.
Yeah.
That doesn't cost money.
Because I'll tell you, I did. I got a demo. God, 2015, I think, of Watson's image recognition. And in 2015, it was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it can be good. Like, image recognition can be good, and it can be bad, and it's not really clear to me, like, I guess it's just how well trained the model is,
Yeah.
how much processing power you have. I mean, it's always somewhat of a parlor trick when I have something that runs locally. Because I mean, I've had ones I think we may have shown on this show. Like NVIDIA sent me their like little Jetson Nano board a couple of
Yeah.
years ago and tried the image recognition on it, and it would be really funny because it would tell you that you were like a cow or something. Like it was completely wrong. Like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
good chunk of the time, and this was an AI board that was made for this.
Right.
But and I'm not necessarily sure it was the board. It was probably the software that they had me using. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's it can be gotten right. Right? There's facial recognition software out there that can recognize it with some degree of accuracy, like real people in real places. So there's stuff out there, but as far as the things that people are running in the bots right now, they're not necessarily very impressive. But it really depends. I think we have to have a very skeptical. These things are trying to make the claim that they can do something as well as a person can, and they're operating on that assumption. And we have to treat that with a great deal of skepticism because there are things that a computer can do way better than a person. Um, but but we have to treat with skepticism how these are being used because it's dangerous to assume that they're going to work properly. Like it's that but by playing with them, by trying to kind of I think restrict the data to known good sources, we can make something that's uh, that's usable and better. We just need to be really conscientious of testing it and making sure that it works we pick something that works for the task that we want it to, and we don't read into it that, wow, this can just do everything and I can ask it and it's just automatically going to do whatever I want.
Yeah. That's knowing the limitations is really the key. There are lots of them right now.
Right. Right. I mean, and one of the problems is people ask it things and it doesn't admit to limitation. Right. Like it doesn't.
It's got that air of confidence that a teenager has, and it says everything. Yeah. It says everything with that. This is the case, and oftentimes it's not. We've watched Google's stock price plummet. You know,
sometimes
right early on.
Yeah, but now, unfortunately, and I'm actually really irritated about this. It seems that we, as media and a society, have kind of settled on these things don't work okay, but these things don't give wrong answers, but that's okay. And I don't agree with that at all. Like we have settled on the idea that we can settle for misinformation, inaccurate information, and that's old news. That was last month's news or 2 months ago news. Now they haven't fixed it. There's still lots of misinformation, and they're wrong most of the time. But that's okay because we've moved on now from that line of inquiry, and we just accept that we're going to get bad information and still act on it. Like I don't think everybody realizes how bad the information is in this and how wrong it can be making things up. It's very dangerous. Did we talk about the last week about the guy who's a law professor who was named by I think Bing Chat as having committed an act of harassment that he never did?
I actually think it was Google because I think I read about a
lawsuit. Maybe it was Google.
We did discuss that.
Yeah,
I mean that's awful.
Yeah, so defamation. These things are defaming people. They're making stuff up. It's very dangerous. Yeah. Very, very dangerous. Sometimes an error message is the best message you can get. Sometimes you don't want your web browser to fake a web page when you should be getting a 404.
Right.
And that's what this technology is doing right now.
Yeah,
But
and it's interesting.
uh,
I told Danielle this years ago. We were, gosh, 2013, 2014. We were working on a project together, and we got an exception. And she's like, "Oh, that's not good." I said, "No, that's what I was trying to get. I wanted the exception. the The error was the point."
right.
Okay. And we went into
I
why that
mean,
was, why under certain circumstances that's what you want. You want the error. You want the exception. Sometimes that is the best thing you can get.
yeah. I mean, so I mean, this is kind of sad now. But this is the rule we have with search engines, right? You never
Mm-hmm.
get no zero results. You can search for
Right.
something really weird, and you will get results. It'll just tell you, "I found something that wasn't quite what you asked for."
Right. I
Uh,
know you were looking for this particular recipe from this particular person, but here are pictures of giraffes. Will that do?
right, right,
No.
because they don't, because there's a business incentive for all these things to keep your eyeballs, to keep you
Yeah.
there, rather than
Yeah.
to just tell you the truth, which is, I don't have the information that you want,
True.
or I can't do what you ask. But anyway, I encourage folks. We have some articles about this on Tom's Hardware. I have an article about right now about auto about why the autonomous agents, Baby AGI and Auto GPT, are interesting but flawed. And then I have one going up tomorrow about Jarvis, which I just showed you, and we stay on, and I hope to soon have one up about how to create your own chatbot, but which I've been able to do, even looking a little bit nicer than what I showed you. But I don't want to just show people that. I want to actually fix it so that you can't get information that's not from
Mm-hmm.
your source.
Yeah.
And that is the trick that I'm trying to pull off. And it seems that nobody wants that. They want, like, all of the tutorials and all the code I found about it is like, oh, just funnel this through ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will give you an answer no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what we want. So
It's the opposite of your goal.
yeah, exactly. So trying to figure out. I'm kind of curious though your opinion. If you had a chatbot, let's say we had put a chatbot on the homepage of Tom's Hardware, so
Yeah.
people could ask relevant questions. If you asked a question that was outside the scope or we didn't have the answer, do you want to just pull the answer from somewhere else?
No. I like being on Tom's Hardware. I
Yeah,
want I want I came to you for a reason.
right.
Right.
But that's the
And
thing.
so
I don't want to
want
give
your
people
input.
right. The other thing is we can't vouch for the other information, right?
Right.
So if it just pulls something out of the internet, I don't know. I can't say whether I would, whether that makes me
Yeah.
look good or bad.
Yeah,
Right.
that's true.
So it could be very embarrassing. So
Mhm.
anyway,
Now, maybe if the answer happens to be on Tom's guide, that's a different
yeah, I
thing.
mean, we
But
could, yeah. If we developed one for our site, then maybe we would have it backfill from other sites that we are part of our company and we
yeah.
trust. But I think the overall message is I wouldn't want it to just pull anything from
Right.
anywhere.
Yeah, because, if you're putting it under your banner, and this is one of the things that we talk about when we do like podcast consulting and stuff. You want to be in control of the things that appear on under your banner, right? If the logo on the top of the site says Tom's Hardware, you want more control over it than it going off and possibly pulling from some Nazi website or whatever an answer.
Yeah,
Right. That's
yeah.
that's not what you want attached to the Tom's Hardware
Yeah, I
brand
mean,
or the PLUGHITZ Live
it,
brand or whatever. You need more control than that.
the other thing that we've discussed, and I'll just leave it with this, is no Section 230 protection for chatbots, right?
Mm.
So if you had a search engine on your site and the search engine backfilled with results from Google, which I don't think I would like either, but if it backfilled with results from Google and one of the results was bad information, you have, you have plausible deniability or whatever. You can disclaim responsibility. Oh, it's just a search result. But if a chatbot says it, that's publishing. So you're responsible for what
Wow.
the chatbot says.
Wow. That's a that brings me back to, the difference between using a pin on your phone and using Face ID or Finger ID, from a legal standpoint of whether or not a cop can force you to unlock your device.
Yeah.
Little oddities like that people just absolutely do not think about.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So
Wow.
anyway, so there's more
Wild.
you can read about this on tomshardware.com. I'm spending a lot of my time staying on top of it because I don't want, because not because I love this technology, but because I realize it's dangerous, and I want to make sure I understand how to implement it and how it works really well.
You want to be out ahead of Skynet. Got it. That That's what I
Yeah.
heard.
Yep.
Well, Avram, as always, I appreciate it. That was fascinating information. I mean, at the just the Section 230 thing at the end, fascinating, worth
Yeah.
all of it. So appreciate that, and I appreciate that you've been staying on top of this. I know it's like trying to nail down mud right now because everything seems to be constantly changing. But I appreciate you staying on top of it and keeping us in the loop. And I always look as always I look forward to what we talk about next time. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by EXA. EXA brings the latest technology to gamers, offering the most immersive products for the ultimate gaming experience. They've compiled the best elements of cutting-edge ENC tech, the latest in Bluetooth 5.0 and 7.1 surround, plus extra features into their headsets so everyone can enjoy a sensational gaming experience. And they've got headsets for Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, and PC. Plus, they won't break the bank. Learn more about the headsets that are available and any current promotions by going to f5live.tv/exa. Over the last couple years, Netflix has expanded from just video content into gaming. They started by doing interactive video content. There was Black Mirror Bandersnatch, and then they've gone well beyond that because that was a success. And even Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt has had these interactive videos. And then they got into Netflix games. When it first launched, it launched with 6 games, 2 of which were from a title of theirs, Stranger Things. Since then, the brand has expanded pretty significantly. There are dozens of games from a number of genres, all available to install onto your phone, whether you have iPhone or Android. They're completely free. It's similar to how the game subscription services work. Xbox Game Pass or Google Play something. That name has escaped me. Apple Arcade, where you get the game and you get the stuff in it. So you don't have to worry about, pay to play or pay to win. But they seem to have kind of stalled out. They've been doing a lot of licensing of external content. They've been bringing some studios on board, but they haven't been doing a whole lot of custom stuff. But that's about to change. They have hired Joseph Staten as the creative director for Netflix games. Staten has been a big name in the gaming industry, particularly on the Halo franchise. He started out as a writer. He has worked on both the Bungie and 343 Industries versions of Halo. So he actually survived the swap over from Bungie leaving Microsoft and going off and doing their own thing. and has been working on Halo under both brands. He obviously worked for Microsoft Studios as well. He's been a creative director. He's been all kinds of things. And with a focus on the storytelling and dialogue aspects of the games, he has been a game writer for a lot of his career. So definitely a good person to bring in as a creative director, somebody whose focus has been on the creative side, not necessarily the gameplay side, but on the creative side of things. It definitely shows that Netflix is serious about maintaining this division. We know Netflix, went through some financial trouble. Interestingly, in the midst of when people would have most likely been interacting with Netflix content, during COVID, but that's okay. Whatevs. Things happen. And they started knocking projects off, but Netflix games has not been one of those things. They definitely see this as a big part of their future. The gaming industry has continued to grow over the last couple of years pretty significantly. We've seen, the esports space grow, but mobile games have been a constant growth space. So Netflix definitely wants to be in this space, and I think this is a good hire for them to be able to play in that space, especially with the amount of intellectual property that Netflix has. Not just Stranger Things, though two of the initial titles were Stranger Things. They've got a lot of intellectual property under their belt that they could potentially do gaming or extended viewing content around, and make their content deeper.
What have you seen in terms of gaming on Netflix that you thought was good?
So I really liked the 8-bit Stranger Things game, which I guess shouldn't be a surprise for anybody. I'm a big Stranger Things fan, and I prefer old school games. Let's see. There is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game in there, and anything Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles can be fun. I forgot the Exploding Kittens game. The digital version of the card game is available through Netflix Games. So, I mean, there's a lot of interesting stuff available in here. Some stuff feels a little, rip-offy, right? They've got Into the Dead 2 Unleashed. Into the Dead, definitely a zombie game ripoff, right? But they've got a Tomb Raider game. So, they're not entirely messing around with nothing. I actually enjoy some of the games on here. Obviously, again, the Stranger Things. I've played around with the Tomb Raider thing. I actually do go in here and play these. I should probably start streaming this more, though. Which we did early on, but never, followed through on that. But yeah.
Yeah. So.
But there's a lot of clutter.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen anything that impressed me. I've seen a couple things that were fun. So there was one. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was called Cat Burglar or something, where you're like it looks like an old fashioned Looney Tunes cartoon, and you're this like cat that has to break in a museum and steal things, and you basically, to keep going, you have to answer trivia questions.
Okay.
And if you get, and you if you win, you get another painting, and you keep going till you fill your wall with all the paintings, and it's just it's a trivia game, but it's kind of fun because of the if you get it right, then you see the cat do something, and if you get it wrong, you see the cat lose or whatever. Although it reminded me a lot of Dragon's Lair in the way that you you do something and then you watch it, you answer a trivia question, then you don't control it, you watch a video clip for a few seconds, and then you answer something else. But it was fun. I have had some fun playing like the trivia quest on there. Um, but
I
I wouldn't
just
say it was like
I
great.
just discovered there's a Nailed It game, so I know where I'm going to lose some time to.
Yep.
Because the promo image is definitely a 3D version of Nicole and Jacques. So I'm definitely going to lose a little bit of time to this. Hopefully they did voicing in it. Even if it's just small things, that would be enough for me. So, but if they're able to do things like that, right? Which I think brings us back to our last topic even a little bit. Staying within content that they control, right? They've got a lot of interesting intellectual property that they could run through and off of, like Nailed It, like Stranger Things. Stranger Things 1984 was a surprisingly fun game. I wasn't actually expecting it. That was a fun game. And I think it's because they fully controlled the IP. And so they had access to the people who made it, right? They could go to the Duffer Brothers and say, what do we want to do here? How do we expand this? How do we, right? And if you have the people, if you have the content, if you control the ecosystem, you can expand a universe and make it a little more interactive. Interestingly, it's one of the things that was a concern when they expanded the Halo universe beyond Bungie and gave it to 343 was that it was going to lose its Halo-ness, right? Because they weren't the people. It was outside of the control of the people who created it. But obviously that wasn't the case with Halo, quite the same way that, say, Call of Duty kind of went off the rails when the founders left. So, maybe with somebody who's able to steer the ship, we might start to see some more custom games in the universe of the Netflix IP. I think that could be fun. I don't know that Netflix games is ever going to be the thing that somebody signs up for Netflix for, but I think that there's enough interesting stuff. And again, there's a lot of clutter. There's a lot of nonsense. But, they're offering a fully featured Asphalt game. They're offering a Tomb Raider game. They've got Exploding Kittens. They do have things to make that category attractive to people today. And then if they can expand into their own thing, I think if they can make their own games instead of mostly licensing them from the outside, I think there's a possibility they can have some success here. That's my take on it. Mobile games are big. I've fallen into another one because I have time to waste, right? I should be out playing in a garden, but I'm racing Mario Kart, but chasing Pokemon. Oh my god, mobile games are destroying me. But it's fine. It's fine. I think they can have success here. I think that's my takeaway. This week's news from the tubes on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Malwarebytes. Whether you use a PC, a Mac, or a mobile device, Malwarebytes Premium is the company's strongest protection ever. It fights threats that traditional antivirus software can't stop, plus it actively blocks threats like worms, rogues, dialers, trojans, spyware, and a whole lot more. It allows you to use your computer and mobile devices with confidence and peace of mind. To learn more and to get a special price, you can go to f5live.tv/malwarebytes. This has been an interesting week for content on social and communications platforms. Two major platforms had to make pretty strong content-based decisions based on their community guidelines, and both of them seem to have erred on the side of blocking and not allowing, which we have seen more of recently. Twitter has always kind of been always erred on the side of blocking content. If there was a question about their content policies, in fact, they referred to it as editorial decisions, which makes them sound like a publisher, but we won't get into into that aspect of things. This week, there was a hack of a Daily Wire journalist. Matt Walsh's phone was hacked, either with assumed SIM duplication. I don't know. I speak English, I promise. Somebody either duplicated his SIM, cloned his SIM, or gained full access to his maybe iCloud account. I assume he has an iPhone. I don't know that to be true, but I'll make that assumption. And accessed at least 10 years worth of personal information, emails, Twitter account, went on as Matt and tweeted. Then there was a journalist who, and there's a fine line here, this is where the editorial decision comes in, who was in contact with the hacker, wrote about and published an article, and then shared said article about that experience, which kind of is borderline on Twitter's policies against hacked material. But it turns out that said journalist, whose name has escaped me, something Dell Cameron, from Wired magazine, turns out he solicited some of the hacked data, not necessarily through the platform, not necessarily through Twitter, but admitted to soliciting that information, and that violates Twitter's guidelines. And because Matt Walsh is not a politician or a big prominent figure, does not fall under the exception for newsworthy, because a phone got hacked. Meh. If it turns out that somebody at Apple or a phone carrier was involved in it, well, then it might become newsworthy. But so Twitter suspended the account of the journalist, which they have done before, even with non-hacked materials. You know, we know the Hunter Biden laptop story, the New York Post. I always struggle with which publication is which. I think it was the New York Post, had their whole Twitter account suspended over the hacked data guidelines, even though that technically wasn't a hack, but it did share information, which put it under it. So Twitter being consistent in their rules, even though there's been an ownership change, which, we were really worried with the ownership change, maybe some of the policies would be ignored. Sure, Wired magazine received a poop emoji when they emailed the press department, but, other than that, policies seem to have followed through. On the other hand, we've got Discord, who is kind of known for not interacting with things, right? It's a chat platform, so kind of in general, they don't get involved. But Discord is where you've probably heard about the leak of classified documents. It happened on Discord. The initial leak of those classified documents happened through a Discord channel and then onto a Minecraft server, which I find even stranger. And that's where they were disseminated. Discord decided to block the spread and resharing of that same information. Sure, felony to possess it. Discord probably doesn't want it on their servers, but I mean, here we've got two companies having to make, you and I have talked many times, Avram, about, how strongly a platform wants to be involved in moderating or censoring content. Most platforms generally don't necessarily want to have to get into that. But here I think both platforms. I mean, Discord went above and beyond their normal policies, and Twitter followed their kind of letter of the law, which I thought was a good thing. What do you think?
I mean, they have to follow. I mean, I want them to to have consistent policies, right? I mean, we could argue about whether or not Matt Walsh is a famous enough person to whatever, but
sure,
and
whether or not the hack itself becomes newsworthy based on its content, based on what happened.
Yeah. But if they have policies and they're enforcing them consistently, at least they're doing that.
Yeah. And thank goodness, right? It's difficult when you have, YouTube, for example. They have their community guidelines, but then they have what is called the Crowder rule, because of Steven Crowder, where they say, well, it's not in our policies, but don't care. That makes it hard to know what's happening. At least with Twitter, at least we knew what was happening, right? They did it to the New York Post. They did it here. Consistency. Fine. At least there's a target. There's a box that we understand what it is. You may not agree with their policy, and I don't, one way or another, but at least there's a thing that we can aim at that we understand.
Yeah. I mean, at least. So, I mean, they haven't been nearly as consistent with their little blue check thing that we could talk endlessly about, but
yeah. I mean, both the inside and the outside of that organization are crumbling. I didn't own any stock in it. I am not an investor. I don't tend to use Twitter that much. So for me, it's been, popcorn and a nice fire and everything's fine to watch from a distance. But here we had a surprising consistency. So the one that I'm most interested in is Discord. Twitter's being Twitter. Okay. But, Discord kind of changed their norm. There are whole Discord channels dedicated to all kinds of illegal and illicit material. And Discord just kind of, not my problem, right? They duck in the corner and they go, yeah, is that happening on our platform? You're going to have to prove it to us. But in this case, they are actively going out of their way to make sure that these, 10 documents or whatever, are not being shared through their platform, because it became one of the primary ways of distributing it once the Minecraft server dumped the files. We've got a member of the military probably going to prison over this, right? Being charged under the Espionage Act, I think. Over sharing these documents. It's a big deal, and it's good that I think it's good that Discord recognized what a big deal this was and acted differently from normal. Twitter being Twitter, I don't think is that big of a story, but Discord not being Discord, I think, is a bigger story.
Yeah, I mean, well, look, they don't want to become known as a source of, I don't know, espionage. Right?
They don't want to become WikiLeaks 2.0. They don't want to be the place where people go to leak classified documents.
Yeah, exactly. They don't want to be that.
Yeah.
It's not really what they would want, I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's a solid enough explanation for what's going on. And I think, obviously, I think it's the right move. Both because I think them having it on their servers might even classify, might even fall under the Espionage Act, even if they're not the ones that put it there. If they weren't active in removing it, But they also don't want the PR. They don't want the stamp, especially right now where they're doing the whole, we're the everything platform, right? We're not just for gaming. Everybody can come to Discord and talk. Except if you're trying to undermine the government. There is a line. And mostly if people know about it. I think their name got brought up in the news in a way that they weren't happy with. And so I think they had to act on this one. Whether it was out of self-preservation or, a feeling of duty or even, the possible legal underpinnings of it. Whatever it is, I think they had to act on it, and it's probably in everybody's best interest that they did. No. Definitely an interesting week for weird content on social media. This week's DRM Not Included on F5 Live Refreshing Technology is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. We all know that you get free shipping on millions of products with Amazon Prime, but you get a whole lot more. Like free music with Amazon Prime Music, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free Twitch subscription to support the content creator of your choice with Amazon Prime Gaming, plus a whole lot more. We've got links to all of these features and some of our favorites, plus a 30-day free trial, all by going to f5live.tv/prime. All right. We got a weird one for you here. So, the Tolkin estate and Amazon are being sued by a fan fiction writer. Now, fan fiction and copyright lawsuits, very common. They happen all the time, and it's usually the rights holders suing the fan fiction authors or artists or whatever. Famously, there was a preschool in Central Florida that got sued by Disney because they had an artist paint a mural that contained some Disney characters. Disney sued them because of copyright infringement. Then Universal came in and sent their own artists to replace the mural with Universal characters. But that's a different situation. But it's usually the rights holder of the original work suing the fan fiction for violation of copyright. In this case, it's reversed for a couple of reasons. One, the Tolkien universe, Middle-earth, is available. It has been available for a while, and people have been writing fan fiction and additional stories within the universe for a long time. There are dozens of websites dedicated to publishing this content, and everything's fine. Second, the primary claim here is that the Amazon series, the Ring of Power, actually stole content from this book for the series, including character names and things like that. Now, the character name claim is a little dubious because even Tolkien had a character in subsequent stories that used this name. But neither here nor there. Here's what happened. The author, Demetrius Polychron, wrote a story, a book, a fan fiction book called The Fellowship of the King. Clever name. And contacted the Tolkien estate to see if they could get it published. The estate even publishes non-Tolkien stories within the universe. And they said no. They worked back and forth a couple of times to no avail. At the very end, this author tried one last time, contacted the estate, contacted the grandson of Tolkien directly, hand delivered a copy of the manuscript and said, love to work together on this, ready to publish it, can we do it? The next day, the estate responded and said, absolutely not interested, bye-bye. He tried to get his manuscript back, they wouldn't give it back. Whatever. Fast forward to 2022, he has now published the book. Amazon is now releasing their series based in the universe, which is also new original content. And he's like, hey, some of this is very familiar. Some of this sounds a lot like the manuscript that I handed to the president of the estate and the grandson of Tolkien himself. And so here we have his attorney reached out, tried to solve it, again to no avail, and so a $250 million lawsuit has been filed against the estate of Tolkien and Amazon for copyright infringement. Absolutely wild that this is 100% backwards from what we're used to seeing in fan fiction copyright infringement suits.
Well, because they don't have copyright anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the other thing is, Amazon is claiming copyright to the characters that in the Rings of Power, I'm sure, right? Mm-hmm. Because anything they created that was on top of the existing works belongs to them for a long time. Depending
on the relationship, whatever the relationship is between Amazon and Tolkien, because they still have approval over certain things in video media. So there is a relationship between them. They signed a big contract. I don't know what it looks like, but yeah, Amazon probably has some rights to it. The estate probably has some rights to it. There's probably shared rights on it, but yes, there's definitely a new copyright on new content that somebody's gonna hold on to with the Rings of Power for decades.
Right. So this guy also kind of has an interest in that if he did create this, if he's creating stuff that's similar, they could sue him. Mm-hmm. So maybe he better sue first.
Yeah, true. And so interestingly, he has a trademark and a filed copyright on the content that is created. So
sure, why not?
So there is, dating back to 2019. So this is before even the announcement, I think, of the partnership between Amazon and the estate. He had the trademark and the copyright filed before he handed the manuscript to the grandson. So it was all legal in writing, logged away before he handed the manuscript over. Smart move. So I mean, that's going to throw an interesting wrench into this, unless, of course, there's no similarities other than the name. The big example that was used was the name Eleanor, spelled Elanor, which was a character name in his book and a character name in the TV show. But Tolkien himself wrote content using that name. It's actually Samwise's daughter. So, I don't know. I kind of feel like I want to read the book. the first.
Yes,
apparently the first of 7. Oh, yeah? I wonder if he's getting review bombed.
Yeah, who knows? It's possible.
But I kind of want to read it.
To say.
And then go back and rewatch the show and see how I feel. I'm not gonna. That's more screen time. And again, I'm trying to spend time outside. That's more.
Yeah, there you could get this. You could get this guy's book, except it's only available as an ebook, I think.
See,
so does that kind of screen time to you? if it's
Yeah,
an
it
ebook.
could be. I I do generally read. If I do an ebook, I do it on a Kindle.
Right.
But anyway, it's absolutely
Yeah.
fascinating because again, it's backwards from what we're used to for a number of reasons, but it is backwards from what we're used to, and I find that wild. Is the fan fiction stuff
Yeah.
that we're used to, that we've talked about, is Nintendo suing artists or Paramount suing non-official Star Trek series or the daycare. And this is absolutely backwards from everything we've come to be used to. So this is gonna be a fun story to follow. That's my current situation because there's interesting precedent here. Fan fiction tends to be ignored legally, right? It tends to be either the fan fiction or the fan art is classified as copyright infringement, or the case is just thrown out. I don't think that can happen here. There's going to be an interesting precedent set here,
I mean, I think what he wants is some money.
especially if the book's a
That's what I
one-star
think.
rating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there were only a handful of people who read it, but yeah, this it sounds like he self-published it.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like
He
yeah, it sounds to
100%
me
did.
like
He said so. In fact, he told the estate when they wouldn't give the book back. He's like, "Fine, you don't want to do it. I'm going to publish it myself." Which, I mean, it's fan
yeah.
fiction. Of course, that's what happened.
I mean, one interesting question though is like, is this a could somebody do this as sort of a lawsuit bomb or something, right? Like where like you send work out to a bunch of places that you know are doing something, then you can come back later and say, hey, I've got somewhat of a vague similarity to something that you're doing. I sent it to you. I think you copied my work, and hope to extract a settlement because you don't, because that's a, you could get some money.
It
I mean,
happens a lot.
Amazon is deep pocketed too here, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they spent a lot of money on this thing, which apparently was a waste of money because I don't think enough people watched it to justify the.
Certainly not a
They
lot.
spent a
Not enough
billion
people cared.
dollars or something.
Yeah. Yeah, a ridiculous amount of money. And like a comically large amount of money.
Yeah. So, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, maybe, hey, like you guys spent $1 billion on this thing. Where's my $1 million?
Right. Right. And, this kind of thing happens a lot. There are, I heard can't remember who it was. There was a producer who said that he gets between 10 and 12, 10 and 15, something like that, movie manuscripts sent to him a week, unsolicited. And he doesn't unseal them. He just RTSs. Because he doesn't want to end up someday in a position where somebody says, well, I sent you a manuscript that was similar to this. Nope, not doing that. Doesn't unseal the packages if they're not delivered by courier from one of the studios directly to him. He doesn't look at them. He sends them right back. Hands off.
Right, because it's you can make with art. It's really hard to. I mean, it's really easy to make that argument and really hard to refute.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right,
Like, if one of the big arguments here is that there's a character named Eleanor, I mean, come on. Tolkien used the name. That's a pretty vague,
yeah,
wild swing.
yes, There's a lot of there's a lot that I mean, I'm sure you could find lots of things in common with a lot of stuff.
Sure.
And we've talked about this in the context of AI, where I don't think AI has this. I personally don't think AI has this right of inspiration. But where does inspiration begin and copyright violation? Where's inspiration end and copyright violation begin? Right? Like if you say, I've been influenced by reading Stephen King, and you write horror novels, does that mean that he can sue you because you were influenced?
Right.
Like where ideas don't come from nowhere, right? So when it's a computer that has them, we can trace them back very specifically to where they came. But some of the things that if you think about the song similarity stuff, lawsuits,
that stuff happens a lot.
I still don't get how 20 or 30 years later somebody was able to sue Men at Work for their Land Down Under song being too similar to some children's song from 30 years before, or how Huey Lewis and the News were able to sue Ray Parker Jr. for the Ghostbusters song, right? They said it was too much I Want a New Drug or whatever, because there's so much stuff like that where you're there's just a few bars of music that sound the same and I'm going to sue you. So
yeah,
the world is wide open for lawsuit.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, in art, I look at one of Steve Jobs' most famous quotes: "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Yeah. Right? It's kind of the accidental nature of the thing is, where is that line between inspiration and full-on theft? So,
yep.
I think you're right. I think probably he's hoping for a settlement, something in the 7-figure range, and he'll be happy to go home. $250 million, I think, is comical, and not at all even what he's going for. He's probably going for a high 6, low 7-figure settlement, and he'll go home, and that's what's going to happen here, almost certainly, because I cannot imagine they're going to risk the possibility of having to pay him royalties in perpetuity, for sure, because these copyright things are so subjective and so weird. So there's a settlement coming here, and they don't want the precedent. So I'm with you there. Well, that is our show. Thank you for joining us. If you joined us live, we appreciate it. If you didn't and would like to in the future, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern, you can go to f5live.tv/join us, and you can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. We always love to hear what you have to say about the topics. If you're not able to join us live, that's okay, to PLUGHITZlive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, F5 Live, Piltch Point, PLUGHITZ Live Presents, and a whole lot more. And of course, you'll find all the ways to watch, listen, and follow along. Lots of stuff going on right now. Expect lots of new content, and I think I may have just accidentally committed to streaming Netflix games. So there might be some of that as well. Things happen. Oh well. But if that happens, it'll be fun anyway. So I play them. We might as well share them with the rest of the world. But I guess with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we'll see you back next time. Ciao.